you had several receivers that touched the ball as well. So talk to us a little bit about how you kept the Fossil Ridge defense a little off balance with all the different touches that your offensive guys got.
Yeah, you've got to utilize. You got 5 potential receivers on the field, and those guys all have to make a play when their number's called. Fossil Ridge has always played us very well defensively. They've got a good scheme, and we felt like opening up and taking some shots. Of course, Parker had that long catch and run early on where he split the safeties and ran away from them. But one of the first deep balls to Pierce for our first touchdown there, where he got down to the 1 yard line and we ran it in. That seemed to loosen them up a little bit. And once we can get those safeties from getting down into the run, then that opens up some of our perimeter game. But when you have 5 guys, our deal is we really got to be able to utilize the whole field vertically and horizontally, as far as using width outside the numbers. When we throw some of our pops and swings out there, that extra 2 or 3 yards that we can stretch linebackers out of the box opens up some things in the run game. So, really a lot of Pierce's yardage came in the second half, where as we were throwing the ball around and getting those guys running in space and getting worn down some, and that helps too, and get some of those blocks set up. And of course, Pierce is such a strong runner. On that initial contact, he's very rarely going to go down. He's going to pick up some extra yards there. In the first quarter, they were getting half of the ball and getting guys around, and then by the third quarter, just a little bit harder to react, and our play action game set some of that up. But we feel good about when we can get 6, 7, or 8 guys touches during the game, and that helps. I mean, as fast as we go, it helps to have some guys we can rotate in the game to spell those receivers, because they're running a lot.
Well, Coach, one thing that jumps out here, you rack up 507 yards of total offense to Fossil Ridge 338. One thing that's a little skewed here is you only had 58 plays from scrimmage. They had 76. But the big key here is you average 8.7 yards per play. So some big-time plays going on there. 346 yards passing, 161 yards rushing. That was led by Blake Short. Very efficient night by your leader there. 20 of 27, 346 yards, and 5 touchdowns, with the key statistic here, 0 interceptions. I mean, what can you say about the performance by your quarterback?
Really excited for him. He's such a hard worker, and he prepares to play at a very elite level. He takes pride in everything that he does. One thing that we talked about after the game that was pretty special for all of us is 2 years ago we played Fossil Ridge on a Thursday night over there, and that's when we lost Jackson Averett for the season to a knee injury over there. And so Blake was pressed into service that night towards the end of the third quarter and played out the fourth quarter, and of course ended up starting the rest of the season his sophomore year. So to come back over there and get a win and come out healthy and for him to play well was really special for him. I think he had talked to Jackson. We had talked to him earlier that day, and of course those guys are always continue to be a special part of our program. Jackson and Connor Lee and a lot of other guys, Corbin Clatterball, Jake Welch, all those guys had texted and called earlier that day, and we're getting texts afterwards on congratulations on those guys. So those guys were very instrumental in starting to build the foundation of this program. So I know Blake felt really good about playing well and then kind of honoring Jackson and going back over there and beating those guys. We played in Fossil Ridge the last 3 years and hadn't beaten them yet. So I know Blake was excited to do that. But, he looked really sharp, played really sharp. I think he was pressing a little bit earlier on, but he showed some maturity in that he stayed patient and understood that in the fourth quarter game, things are going to open up and things are going to come to you, and you're setting up different aspects of different plays by what you're starting the game out with. But I was really, really proud of him. He threw some great deep balls to Reed, and Reed made some outstanding one-on-one catches against defenders who were in pretty good shape with them. But Blake did a good job of running the offense and distributing the ball out, and he didn't make too many mistakes Thursday night.
Coach, that's one of the primary reasons we do this show each and every week, is to share those stories, that impacts Texas high school athletes, Flower Mound Jaguars, and what a great story. Blake stepping up. We talk a lot about it, next man up. And for any sophomore, sub-varsity player that's listening right now, they got to be prepared. Something can happen similar to what you just described, and they might have to step into a big game on any given Friday night. What would you say to those kids that maybe don't get a lot of playing time right now, but might need to be prepared to step in?
Well, I've got a great admiration, a great heart for those kids. I was one of those kids that you got to pay your dues and wait your turn. But I think that's just part of it. You show up every day, you work hard. One of our building blocks in our program is commitment, and another building block is perseverance. So things don't just necessarily happen overnight, but you put in the work. And I always say that good things happen to those who work. And the hardest for the longest is there's going to be a payoff to it. I can go down the list and think of guys every single year that paid their dues and played on any one of our Navy team or of our freshman teams, Navy or Silver, playing our JV teams, Navy or Silver. We had some guys that Thursday night, we had some guys last year, had some guys 2 years ago that were starters on the varsity their senior year who had played on the JV their junior years. And that's we feel like getting to play and getting those reps is key to your development. And I'm proud of our coaches. I think in our program, we do a great job of developing players. And if they stick with it and show up and work hard, then they're going to have a role in our program, and it's going to be an important role. And we had a guy the other night, Diego Moran, who came in the second half and went into our nickel spot and made some big plays for us. Really came in, did some good things that were hurting us on some of their swing passes, and he fit through some of those blocks and squeezed in there and did a good job. He's on a couple of our special teams. His brother Homero Moran he did that a couple years ago for us. He was a guy that probably didn't get his first start until fourth or fifth game into his senior year, and he played on the JV his junior year. Just a savvy football player, made plays. He made a huge play in our Marcus game that year in 2017 on a big third down pass breakup. And there's tons of guys like that just show up every day, work hard. Really admire those guys that show up on a day like today. It's Labor Day and you don't have school, and you may not be in that first or second varsity huddle. You may be on the JV and you're running an attack team, but you learn some of that perseverance and toughness by showing up and working, and eventually you're going to get your turn and it's going to pay off.
Yeah, I was talking about just that exact same thing last night with a group of dads here in the community, and talk about just what lessons that are learned by just being part of the team and being part of championship style football that will take them so far down the road in life, and they can reflect back on this 10, 15, 20 years from now, and when something's going on tough in their business life, their personal life, they can think back to those tough practices when it's 100 degrees out and realize, they've got the stamina and the grit, to make a difference. So that's such a great message for any high school athlete. Now, Coach, we talked about the balance earlier. You end up with 10 first downs on the ground and 10 through the air. And you mentioned Reed Touchstone earlier. He didn't find the end zone, but a couple big passes. He ends up with 151 yards, a couple of nice back shoulder throws from Blake Short, averaging about 50 yards a catch. And then that frees up some things for, Parker Clark and Reese Carter and Carson Winters. And you really did a great job throwing the ball around, for those 5 TDs. What can you say about that receiving core and the timing that Blake Short has with those guys?
Well, one thing is those guys are so selfless. They work really hard for each other. And as a receiver, if you got 4 or 5 guys that aren't running their routes hard, then it may not open up something for another guy. I mean, the play that that Parker made, which was a great catch and run on his part. But there's other guys that if they don't take the top off of the defense, if they don't stretch the field horizontally, then those things aren't going to open up. If they only run hard when they're the primary target for a ball, then it's not going to work. So I just appreciate their the job that they do of knowing and understanding that. And it could be different guys in different games. I think they know at some point in time they're going to get their opportunities. But the other thing is they work really hard in practice. I mean, the thing you talk about Reed and he just, it's been an old cliche that you play like you practice. Well, if you watch him practice, there's one speed that he knows, and it's with 100% effort, and that's a great example. All those other receivers feed off of that, and I just can't say enough about the level that they really work and train and practice. Those guys don't miss our early morning workouts. They work hard in the weight room. They take pride in what they do. If you watch them during warm-ups, they take pride in the details and making sure that it's right. If they're doing individual ball drills, I mean, there's no lack of effort on their part, and I think that's why what paid off. Reed is a competitive kid. All of our receivers are. I mean, when the ball's in the air, you're going to have to be in the right spot because they're going to go get it. They'll go compete for those 50-50 balls as good as anybody I've seen.
We talk a lot about Pierce Hudgens. He's going to be each and every week. He's going to be one of your big-time playmakers. But Andrew Moss, 6 touches, 36 yards. He averaged 6 yards a carry. Boy, if you can keep that 1-2 punch going throughout the season, you're going to have a lot of success.
Well, Andrew, of course, is a sophomore, and he really did some good things as a freshman last year. Early on, we of course had try to get guys in the right spot, and about halfway through the year, we saw him as a guy pretty consistently that ran the ball hard. He hits the holes well. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. He's a really good weight room kid. Worked hard in the off season, and then during the spring came out and did some good things. So we had him up with us on the varsity, and we're glad we were able to get him into the game. I mean, he came in and got north and south and hit some big runs, and getting that experience, getting those touches early on, I think is going to help his confidence and know that he can get in there and carry the load. He's able to see holes, and he's a smart running back. He knows where he's supposed to be and hits the holes on time, and so we're excited about him.
Coach, one of the oldest cliches in football is defense wins championships. And I don't know, you're an offensive-minded guy. I don't know if you totally buy into that or not, but your defense held Fossil Ridge in the second half to only 1 score. You must be really proud of the way those guys battled and the job that Coach Vardaman did, getting them in the right spots on the field and the right situations. Can you share with the fans a little bit about how your defense played and, in a tough conditions, like we said, 100-plus degrees, some cramping going on, holding the Keller Fossil Ridge team to only 1 score in the second half was pretty big.
Yeah, well, I do believe that. I believe defense win championships. I think that the defense really establishes and defines the toughness and the grit of your football team. It is very hard in this day and age with what offenses are doing to really stop people consistently. I remember when I was defense coordinator at Irving MacArthur, we had a goal of holding teams to 13 points or less, and then it moved up to 17 points or less, and then it was, I remember it being 275 yards a game or less. And shoot, if you're holding people to under 350 yards and under 24 points nowadays, you're doing pretty good. Offenses are really good with spreading the field. The passing game, the quick game has really evolved to try to get defense in numbers situations where they're in a bind. But Coach Vardaman, he's done an outstanding job just establishing the culture of our defense. They play hard. We had some things that and Fossil Ridge has always done a good job of utilizing their athletes and getting the ball in space. But I think early on we were just not we were not used to the angles that we had to take